5 simple foods you can add to your diet that influence GLP-1. And I've said this a million times in other videos, does not replace a GLP-1 receptor agonist like Ozempic, but people are looking for the similar effect. And one thing that Ozempic has taught us is that what really does matter is our intake, right? I am definitely a science guy, and I know that there is more going on than just calories in, calories out. That's the big one, but there's a lot more going on. I know that. But when you're talking to the masses, being able to influence how much we take in, it's a pretty big thing. Now, the issue that I have with Ozempic is the muscle loss that comes with it. So if we can look at the foods that are going to have the best effect at increasing GLP-1, we're in a really good spot. Now, I want to make note that the most important thing that we focus on here to increase GLP-1 is we want food or somewhat undigested particles, particularly undigested carbohydrates in this case, to go from the upper part of the small intestine to the lower part of the small intestine. If more undigested carbohydrates make it to the lower part of the small intestine, that's going to trigger the release of gut incretins. That's going to trigger GLP-1. It's also going to trigger what's called PYY, which goes to the brain and produces or influences neuropeptide Y in the hypothalamus to actually make our brain want less food as well. So we'll just get right into the nitty-gritty of it. A lot of the foods that I'm talking about, you can also get through Thrive Market. So I popped a link down below. They're a sponsor on this channel. But the thing I like about them is right now, there's a lot of focus on ingredient quality. Thrive has been preaching this for years, for a really long time, that ingredient quality matters. Food quality matters, not just quantity. So if you look at the ingredients on pretty much all the food that they are sourcing things that are clean. They are sourcing things that are good for you. They're doing with the right products. That's what I'm a big fan of. So if you're trying to find a place to shop for your food where you don't have to look a million times at the label, that's what it's all about. I was just in Europe, and the thing is the food that Thrive Market has is cleaner, like the food in Europe, at least in my opinion, right? So the cool thing is you can sort by diet type, you can do all this, but there's also a 30% off discount link. So anything you buy, you load up your grocery cart, 30% off, plus a free gift through Thrive Market. So it gets delivered right to your doorstep. You don't have to go to the grocery store hungry. It makes it super simple. And a big thank you to them for the continued support on this channel. And your support of them by grocery shopping with them directly makes it so that we can keep making these videos. So check them out in the top line of the description underneath this video. First thing that I'm going to talk about is just a basic macronutrient, but we are going to talk a little bit about timing here. This study was published in Obesity, and it was looking specifically at protein. Okay, so yes, the first one is a basic one, and you're probably going to want to skip over this because it's so basic when I say it's protein. But hear me out, because we're going to break it down a little bit more, and you might want to understand the why and also the timing. So this study published in Obesity had subjects go on a eukalorie diet. They ate the same amount of calories, just one was regular protein intake, one was higher protein intake. And they actually had them eat over different frequencies, different times a day and whatnot. But what they found is that independent of caloric intake, even though they ate the same amount, the group that had more protein intake ended up eating significantly less and a higher GLP-1 response. They actually had even better, what was called a PYY response. Peptide YY is similar to GLP-1, but it's almost more important because PYY then travels to the brain and increases neuropeptide Y, which is in the hypothalamus, which then signals from the brain for us to be less hungry, but then subsequently can trigger an increase in GLP-1. So you're actually solving it at the brain level and at the body level. Now, when we start getting into the frequency, what matters more? Well, there's actually more evidence supporting larger boluses of protein and longer periods of time without food, which would make sense from a fat loss perspective too, right? Every time you eat, A, you're opening up the floodgates to potentially eat something bad, but B, you're also just continually having these insulin spikes up and down. So what I would recommend is having a larger bolus of protein and then sort of having a long period of time without food. Now, let's get into the granular with protein just a little bit. If you have something like whey protein, and I've talked about this in other videos, whey protein is unique because it can kill your appetite for about 45 minutes to an hour strongly. But then the appetite comes back with quite a vengeance. So whey protein is good when you're in these situations where you're like, shoot, I need to kill my appetite now, but I'm going to be in control in about an hour. Like I'm on the road, I just need to kill my appetite now. That's when whey protein is good. But then we're seeing evidence that casein protein, things like cottage cheese or the slower digesting protein, this has an effect over a longer period of time. So with proteins, what you may want to do is use something like whey protein when you're in the short term and use something like cottage cheese or maybe ground beef or something like that when you're looking for a longer, more drawn out satiety. The next thing is soluble fiber. I'm going to talk about 2 specific kinds here. Psyllium, because the evidence is so strong there. There was a study that looked at 19 randomized controlled trials, not like little fly-by-night studies, but 19 RCTs. This was published in BMC Endocrine Disorders, and I'll read you the excerpt from the study. Psyllium has similar effects as intestinal alpha-glucosidase inhibitors, leading to increased levels of GLP-1. What this means is that even researchers in this 19 RCT study said this could be as strong as an intervention, like an actual potential pharmaceutical intervention. We know that fiber is good for making us poop and things like that. The reality is we don't need as much as we think, but also if you are going to have some, you might want to just have enough. I don't even want to talk about it from the health perspective. I'm talking about it from the sheer appetite suppression perspective. We cannot deny that. As long as your stomach agrees with fiber, Psyllium Husk is a great way to just throw that into the mix it into that shake that I was talking about. If you want to make it like a whey protein shake and add psyllium, it's going to slow everything down. It mixes easily. You can just pound it and shoot it down. It is ridiculously powerful. 1 tablespoon of this stuff will curb your appetite. Okay, it is probably one of the most potent stimulators next to protein. Actually, protein and fiber combined, holy moly, that is powerful. The other food in the fiber category is Shiritaki noodles, which I talk about a lot. Just because those are so soluble fiber, they tend to kind of swell up. They draw a lot of water, which thereby slows down. So what Shiritaki noodles work really well for is you're having them in conjunction with carbohydrates because they slow down the overall digestion of those carbohydrates, allowing for more potent GLP-1 response and more stable glucose response. Because remember, GLP-1, its role isn't necessarily to curb your appetite. It's to control the glucose a little bit more. So believe it or not, it's a sort of a modulator of glucose, which therefore influences appetite. So it works really well if you take in like glucomannan, shiitake fiber, along with some carbohydrates. Next up is going to be salmon. Have you ever noticed that you're actually not that hungry after you have salmon? It's kind of wild, right? Now, I know that not everyone likes salmon, so we could always go down some other avenues of foods that have high omega-3s, but the evidence with omega-3 is really strong. We've seen now that fish oil consumption and omega-3s increase adiponectin, but also increase leptin. But here's what's wild. Leptin is going to curb our appetite unless we are overweight and have leptin resistance. Then it could actually cause a problem. But the cool thing is, because the eicosapentaenoic acid that's in fish oil, the EPA, it brings down inflammatory markers in the body rapidly, which actually improves, even temporarily, insulin sensitivity and leptin sensitivity, which means that when you have fish oil, you get the increase in leptin along with the concurrent decrease in leptin resistance. So what this means for you is you probably have proper signaling for a little while, meaning you're not that hungry. So a little bit of salmon, or if you really wanted to, even popping like 5 or 6 fish oil pills could actually influence us a lot. The thing is, the salmon, you're getting the protein along with it, so you're getting that added benefit. And that's definitely something to take home because the protein is so powerful, the omega-3s are powerful. Did that with a little bit of psyllium husk on the side, some cottage cheese. Oh my gosh, you wouldn't want to eat for 4 or 5 hours, easy. The next one is one that I've talked about a number of times, but I'm going to mention it again because it's powerful. Sacha Inchi seeds. Sacha Inchi, according to the Journal of Science of Food Agriculture, is a strong DPP-4 inhibitor. DPP-4 is what breaks down overall GLP-1. So when GLP-1 is reduced, the DPP-4 enzyme comes in and breaks it down. Sacha Inchi, as well as some other foods like mussels and some other shellfish, actually break this down or inhibit this enzyme. So the enzyme cannot come in and break it down, therefore letting GLP-1 last longer. So Sacha Inchi not only being really good because of this DPP-4 inhibition, but it's also really high in soluble fiber. So you're checking a lot of boxes with it. So as always, keep it locked in here on my channel, and I'll see you tomorrow.